So we'll start with Annie, who is the Director of Product Management at Twilio, where she leads the voice and network connectivity teams. She's a multicultural leader who believes in building these diverse teams and has been building an amazing team of product managers at Twilio. She's the perfect balance of technology and business, since she has a master's in science and double E from Stanford University and an executive MBA from the London Business School. Um, Her reputation precedes her, and it is one of getting things done. I hope that now, actually, Annie, if you're on, you can share your story and go into exactly how you found the success in the tech world.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Thank you for the kind intro, and thank you for having me. It's really exciting to be here. So pretty much I spent overall like 20 years helping enterprises build and evolve their IP communication solutions and networks. So I've always been like telecom at heart. I've worked primarily as a product manager most of my life. And currently I work at Twilio, which is essentially a communications platform as a service company, which is a lot of fun. And I started when the company was 3,000 and has seen it grow to up to 3,000 employees. So it's been a really fun ride. I was born and raised in Mexico City. And actually, I was just talking to my husband recently, like I'm right about the halfway point where I've lived half of my life in Mexico City and half of my life in the US. So it's really interesting that you really feel like you don't really belong anywhere, but you belong in different parts of the world. And I guess you belong where your family is. That's the way I see it at the end of the day. And pretty much for due to the history I have, like I end up having a few friends in every country that I live in, but I end up having friends in many different countries around the world. So it's just a different style of life, I guess. A bit of history. So my mom is a graphic designer. My dad is a chemical engineer. So I'm definitely like the first to go into the tech area. So how did I actually get into this? In high school, I was exposed, thankfully, into an international school where pretty much I was studying with people around the world, and that really marked my story as far as like I always seek to have like people from different countries, different point of views, and I really value just like the diverse point of view. And when I don't have it, I really get anxious and I try to go look for it and do something different. And when I decided what did I want to study, I was just like, gosh, I have no idea. Because in Mexico, when you start your career, you have to decide that you don't just enter like a generic bachelor and you can then refine it as like you have to decide what career do you want on day one. So I was like, okay, I like math, I like physics. I don't really want to do actuarial science, which is like the obvious one if you like math. So I just like, okay, engineering sounded like a good fit. And I found a career that was called telematics, which was a combination of telecommunications and information technology. And all of the classes seemed pretty cool. I'm like, oh, you learn about wireless technologies, you learn about programming, which I had no idea what it was exactly at the time. But I was just like, that seems like a good match for me. Um, so funny enough, I didn't know this, but I landed in a male-dominated field, as everybody knows. But I actually thought that was kind of cool because it gave me an opportunity to stand out just by being me. Um, there were some moments, but there were kind of like I got called out by being quiet or being female. But it's like I just let them like I never took them too hard as like maybe now I realize it more obviously. But it's like pretty much I just said like I'll keep doing what I do, hard work, good work. I love what I'm doing, and that always like helps me shine overall. And that's really been like when I look back at that moment and like throughout my career, that's really has been something that defines me as far as like as an introvert. I allow my tech to make me shine. And then over the years, I have learned that you do need to give it a little push every once in a while because you need that in the world. So at ITAM, which was the university I studied in Mexico, I learned about programming for the first time, and I learned about the thrill that you get when your code compiles and it actually does what you wanted it to do. I'm like, wow, this is amazing, and that just kind of like planted the seed in my heart, I guess, and it prepped me for my tech life. But in Mexico at ITAM, it was really nice because I could be close to my family. I had a great experience there, but I really started to miss that lack of diversity in people that I was working with or studying day in and day out. So I said, it's like, okay, well, I want to work in the US. I want to have that experience. And if I want to work in tech and work in the US, I probably need a master's to be able to to be able to land a good job. So I applied for a master's. I ended up applying to Cornell, MIT, and Stanford. For some reason, I really wanted to go to MIT. I think it was probably driven because I probably had seen more movies about MIT than anywhere else, to be honest. And like they all had great rankings. but I got waitlisted there. I got accepted into Cornell at Stanford, and I was just like, wow, Cornell, it seems too cold. But there was a professor that really wanted me to go there, but I was just like, no, Stanford seems better, like the California lifestyle, nice sunshine, and thankfully it ended up being a really good call there. Um, so once I started at Stanford, it was a really amazing experience there, as far as like just being surrounded with people from different parts of the world, and also just realizing that there's some really smart people all over the place that you can learn from. And I think that was the biggest thing. Like every person that you interacted with, there's something you can learn from them, whether it's like something techy, something about how they like deal with their lives. There's always something you can learn, or even if there's something that you don't like in a person, you can learn about what do you not want to become. And that's a really big aha moment for me. So at Stanford, pretty much I ended up graduating a semester early because I realized that when I was looking at how much money I was spending on just on paying for school, I was like, oh, if I cram more credits into a quarter, it actually cost me the same amount of money and I can finish sooner. So that means less money at the end of the day. I'm like, let's give that a try. So I had a few crazy quarters in there and graduated. And in hindsight, that was just like a blessing in disguise because that was exactly around 2001 with the dot-com boom. Well, the dot-com crash, not the boom. Never mind. When I ended up finding a job working for Lucent Technologies as a systems engineer, um, and that was just, I think, pure luck as far as like just finding the right job that was going to essentially mark my career. But I moved to Chicago for that job, and their systems engineering was about just defining requirements for. I was working in wireless technologies, about building core networks, so core infrastructure for communications, and it was just about defining the requirements that customers were looking for in their solutions and telling like defining for engineering, this is what we need to go build in this product line. So it's kind of like a little bit of product management there, but not the whole story. Um, so long story short, after Lucent Technologies, I moved to Boston for a company that Lucent acquired. I worked there and I got the experience of kind of like that smaller sized company. And I was just like, wow, you can get a lot more things done. So I'm like, I want to try this at a real company, not just at a company that gets acquired into a large company. So I found a role at a company called Acme Packet there, and I got hired there as a product manager. So at the time we were around 100 people. So it's like a little bit after the startup when they enter like that mid-sized company phase. And that for me was like tech at its best. It's like you are able to influence what the company is doing in a big way, and you're able to influence what customers are doing with with the technology that you're building, and just knowing that you're able to help them define their networks, which at the end of the day is like how we communicate between us every day. I thought that was like really amazing for me. And I learned a lot of like really important career things in that company. Essentially, I ended up, just because it was a small company, you had more access to like the executive team. So I ended up building a really good relationship with the CTO, primarily because again, like my hard work kind of like, you did good work, engineering, like working with you as a product manager, you got to know the CTO, who was also the co-founder, and he became my champion. And I learned in hindsight that when you can identify somebody that helps you in your career as being a champion is the best thing you can ever have, because when you don't have it, you really miss it, and your career, at least for me in my experience, your career doesn't grow as fast as it could grow. So he's definitely like one of the people that I really owe a lot of my career to. Um, and an interesting story, because in one of the breakout rooms we were talking about this, I learned the hard way as far as like how to realize that you're underpaid and how to realize how to ask for money. So I had this story where it's like I was like, well, I feel like I should be at the next level. Maybe I was a PM and I was asking for a senior PM or something along those lines. So I like built up all of this courage and I went to my CTO and it's like, hey, I believe I deserve a promotion and I want to be senior product manager. And he's like, yeah, no, you're doing great work. We'll make it happen. So he makes it happen. I get my senior product manager role. And then I'm like, what about my salary? My salary didn't change. So it's like, that doesn't seem to add up. So then I had to like build up the courage again to say, it's like, well, actually, yeah, I got the promotion, but I also want the money to reflect the promotion, right? So, but it was just a learning experience that you just have to ask for the things that you believe you deserve. And I've also learned the hard way, just kind of like summarizing some of my career looking forward. It's you like probably at least myself, and I'm sure there's other people out there, like I wait sometimes too much to ask for things until I'm sure that I can do the job. And sorry, and sometimes you just have to take the leap of faith to say, hey, I know I'm going to be able to do this, and that's when you need to ask for it before you actually know that you can do it for sure. So long story short, Acme Packet goes through an IPO, which was an amazing experience. And then it ended up getting acquired by Oracle, which is one of the tech giants here in SF. And that's pretty much what brought me back to San Francisco, because I said, if there's anything I ever want to do that has an impact working at Oracle, I probably need to be at headquarters. Um, and then throughout, before I moved, actually, I ended up doing an executive MBA. And the story there was just kind of like, I was getting to a point in my career where I was getting bored with what I did, but I liked the work, but I wasn't growing anymore. So I had like a lot of spare cycles. So I said, it's like, oh, it's probably time to study business. My brother was actually at the time going into business school, and he was like telling me about it. I'm like, oh, that seems kind of fun. So that's kind of like how I ended up there. So then I moved to San Francisco, and that's where it's like I ended up then moving to Twilio, which is the company where I am currently at. And just since I know I'm coming up close on time, the interesting story there is like I moved from like being VP of engineering to a senior product manager at the time. So it was like a very big downgrade in title. But for me, it was like about the role, and it was about like having that Silicon Valley experience and just like doing what you love doing. And having lived through that, it was absolutely like the right call, because like even if like the title doesn't make sense, but as long as you have the right role, you can then work up the title to make it whatever you want it to become. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you for having me, and I think I'm close to time, so I'll probably close it out there.